Allen has all day. End zone touchdown.
Cuts it upfield, and he waltzes into the end zone. Touchdown, Patriots.
2008, the last time the Patriots did not make the playoffs.
Tua Tagovailoa in the game for the first time this year.
How about a little Tua touchdown? How about that?
Yeah. End zone. Gesicki touchdown. That's a Jet touchdown. Broken up by Marcus May. Jets will get their first win of the season.
The Buffalo Bills are champions of the AFC East for the first time in 25 years.
NFL Network is your home for live preseason action, and week 2 starts with Patriots and Eagles on Thursday, August 19th. It's one of 8 live games we'll show you over 4 days that week. You can catch the entire slate of preseason games in the month of August right here on NFL Network. Let's get into our camp countdown, bringing in Willie, D. Hall, and Cynthia Freeland in the mix. We're going to go ahead and check out the biggest storylines surrounding the AFC East as we prepare for training camp. So let's start with you, D. Hall, and the Jets. What you got your eye on?
Oh my God, I think the biggest storyline is going to be that culture change, right? When you go from a coach like Adam Gase, who probably in a lot of press conferences had more memes than he did wins on the football field, and then you go to a guy like Robert Saleh, it is all about how can this guy get those players in that locker room to change their mindset, to feel like it doesn't matter what the score is. Every time we step on this football field, we're going to go out there and compete. And I know a lot of that has to do with this quarterback, Zach Wilson. How can Matt LaFleur and this offense get him going? This is a quarterback-friendly style of offense that's going to rely a lot on the run game. And so I'm looking forward to seeing Rob Saleh change the culture in the New York Jets locker room. And those guys are going to start to slowly become winners. I don't see it happening this year a lot, but in the future, I love what Rob Saleh and the Jets are going to be doing.
You know what one of the friendliest ways to help your quarterback and your run game is? It's to improve your O-line. If you look last season, they allowed over a 31% pressure rate. That is a ton. It actually ranked 29th, meaning like the 3rd worst in the NFL. So when you look to see what they could do to potentially change this, well, they added Morgan Moses, a great tackle, kind of quietly. And then, of course, they drafted that guard, Elijah Vera Tucker, in the 1st round. So it's going to be a good, welcome to the NFL, a little nicer one now, given this O-line.
All right, Willie, we're going to keep it rolling here. You know where I'm going with you, right?
Yep.
What about
absolutely.
a storyline for the Patriots?
Remember that movie, Scarface, when he said, I reloaded? They reloaded, okay?
I didn't know where you were going.
I was going to help you out. I'm going to put you there, all right? Just stay with me. Now, in the offseason, this was the worst, okay? Not winning the division, not making the playoffs, having all those injuries and not competing, and hearing the Bills now run a division and is going to be Super Bowl champions at some point and going to AFC championship. Well, guess what? They just went into the piggy bank, the Kraft family, and they spent the most money in free agents. They filled all the voids along the front on both sides of the football, the tight ends, the receivers, pass rushers. They even went out and got a guy by the name of Jones from Alabama, a quarterback that's probably going to be the franchise guy and take over for Cam Newton at some point. And they said, hey, it's not over for Cam either. We still believe in him. We're going to give him a 1-year deal and put talent around him. They went out and told and showed everybody that they're not just going to lay down. It is not over for the Patriots, and they know what they needed. They went out and got every single piece to the puzzle for that organization. So we're going to see what's going to happen this year, but they're not going for hearing all that. The division is over, playoff. That's not happening.
Well, one thing I'm looking at that you hit the nail straight on the head with is an increase in offensive efficiency. If you look on 3rd down last season, they only converted under 41% of their 3rd downs. They were not great in the red area, just a 54.2 red zone touchdown conversion rate. That was 24th in the NFL. Of course, bringing in Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry. They were pretty spendy this offseason, which isn't a very characteristic move for the Patriots. But this all adds up to make sure that that offense keeps rolling, keeps those first downs coming.
All right, D. Hall, a warning before I say this, talk to me nice. Let's hear your storyline with the Dolphins.
Put you out there.
Well, MJ, I know this is your squad down there in South Beach, and to me, the biggest storyline is going to be Tua. How does he become even better at the quarterback position? It's funny because I had this well-prepared speech about what I was going to say about Tua, but then I was thinking about what Trent Dilfer said when Tua was at the Elite 11 camp, I think as a sophomore, and he had all these things he needed to work on. And then he said he came back the next year, and he was the best quarterback hands down. You know who was at that Elite 11 camp too? Trevor Lawrence. And so this kid loves to compete. I'm a little nervous because you get rid of the offensive coordinator, Chan Gailey, who is known for putting quarterbacks in position to do what they do well. And then you see Tua struggle a little bit. And so now they're going with the co-coordinators being Godsey and Studsville. And so I'm just a little bit intrigued to see how that dynamic is going to work. But I got all the confidence in the world, MJ, and Tua, that he will bounce back, and I can't wait to watch him ball.
I agree.
One way that he could bounce back is using quick passes, which actually was a source of success last season. Almost a 74% completion percentage on such passes with 7 touchdowns and just 2 interceptions. So when I look to see what could potentially happen here with Jalen Waddle, who, of course, they drafted 6th overall, well, this guy just averaged 10.1 yards after the catch per reception last season. Of course, that was at Alabama. But Alabama's a great school. They can figure this one out. Those yards after the catch on those quick passes, that could be a way to get Tua going.
I like it. Thank you for the numbers, Cynthia, as always. All right, Willie, let's round this out. What about the Bills? What are you looking at?
It's Super Bowl or bust. All right, this is one of the most talented teams in the NFL. They got to the AFC Championship last year and fell short. They know what they need to work on, but what was the reason why they fell short? Well, maybe it was probably because of the defense, okay? And they recognize that in the offense. So what do? They go out and they draft Greg Rousseau out of Miami. They go out and get Boogie Basham out of Wake Forest, 2 defensive ends. They re-sign Matt Milano. They add some depth and firepower to the pass rush in the front 7. You can't win in this league if you can't play defense and control the trenches and get to the quarterback and stop the run. They recognize that. They don't have a lot of holes, okay? They might have lost John Brown on offense, but guess what? Here walks in Emmanuel Sanders, I think an upgrade at that position. So you got everything around you offensively for a quarterback in Josh Allen. You can run the ball, your offensive line. You add to the defense. There's nothing else to talk about. If you're a Buffalo Bill fan, you're talking about Super Bowl and nothing else.
You know, you're looking at that number on the bottom of the screen that they pressured quarterbacks at a 27.2 rate, which ranked 10th in the NFL. But you have to take all of this into context. Teams were passing on them quite a bit because, of course, they were playing with the lead. So those numbers, that needs to be something that they can reinforce. And you talked about going out in the draft and drafting 2 defensive ends, 2 pass rushers. This means that they added key pass rush depth and youth to that front. So if you talk about Super Bowl or bust, it's all about staying fresh and keeping it going longer. So for me, this one is all about reinforcing that front.
You know, the Bills are the glow-up story of the league, truly. I mean, a couple seasons ago, nobody was even looking at Josh Allen, and now he came out, busted through. And honestly, they have set the tone and the standard, really, going into this season and in this division in the AFC East. So they're going to be very exciting to watch. All right, guys, thank you. It is the biggest season ever, and it starts training camp. We're back, baby. A whole week of first looks and insider access leading up to the first ever Back Together Saturday, fueled by Gatorade, with a full day of coverage around the league as all 32 teams take the field. Training camp Back Together. That coverage begins July 26th on NFL Network. Okay, when you think deep ball quarterbacks, you think Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, maybe even Aaron Rodgers. But after the break, we're going to show you why the old GOAT belongs on that list, too. In fact, he may just belong at the top of it. That's next. Point 3. Back now with Cynthia Freeland as we take a deeper analytics look at the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, Cyn, what did we see from Tom Brady and Bruce Arians that really fueled their playoff success?
Well, those downfield passes, of course. You just put up that awesome full screen. I mean, a 9.3 air yard per attempt. That's number 2 in the NFL last season, up from 7.6 as a Patriot. 1, that's a function of Bruce Arians' offense. 2, it's a function of having all of the weapons around him that make so much sense for this deep passing. And 3, he's just awesome. He's defying logic, he's defying time, and it's working out. And by the way, I have to say, his O-line was also really good for him, too.
I love that you mentioned that, too. Can't have one without the other, huh, Cynthia? Thanks, girl. All right. Of course, the Bucs keeping both the championship recipe and the ingredients the same. They brought everyone in the kitchen sink back from that Super Bowl winning team. All 22 starters, including Leonard Fournette, Rob Gronkowski, of course, Antonio Brown, and quite a few other big names. Let's continue this Bucs discussion with D. Hall and Willie. All right, D. Hall, another key player re-signed the Bucs was Shaq Barrett, who has 27.5 sacks in his 2 seasons with Tampa. Now, how key was his re-signing to their chances of repeating?
Oh, tremendous, MJ. And I think Willie, he knows this firsthand, being a premier pass rusher in this league for so long. I mean, Shaq Barrett can do it all. You talk about a pass rush guy who can take tackles and give him a little bit of wiggle. You talk about that 2019 season where he had 19.5 sacks, put a lot of teams on notice at that point that he was going to be a dominant pass rusher in this league. And then, you know, you match him up with the rest of the pieces across that defensive line, and you understand why this Tampa Bay defense is so disruptive, because they're able to just rush those 4 guys, Shaq Barrett, JPP, and Ndamukong Suh, Vita Vea, let those 4 guys go. Or they can bring Devin White in and blitz him from the linebacker position, Levante David. It's just so many different things that Todd Bowles can do. And if he decides to just drop those 4, 7 guys back in coverage, and they're able to just be an opportunistic defense and get those turnovers, get the ball back to Tom Brady, and let him throw it down the football field.
Very versatile guys, D-Hall, guys that can do a lot. And Shaq Barrett has an arsenal of moves. He's not a one-trick pony.
That's one of the most interesting things about him, how dynamic he is. But, Willie, of course, not that you need reminding of that 2004 Patriots squad, the last team to repeat. What will be the Buccaneers' biggest challenge in being able to hoist that Lombardi trophy again this season?
Well, it's a short offseason, right? Because you go so long into the playoffs and then you playing in the Super Bowl. And I would say complacency, all right? Guys get caught up in all the extracurricular things that go along with winning the Super Bowl, vacationing, want to take some time off, spend times with your family, enjoying all the accolades, letting everybody tell you how great you are. But not this team. Let me tell you something. Because of their leader and what he has reinforced to them, that it's not automatically supposed to happen. Although we've signed everybody and we've got everybody back, it is not automatic. I remember going to the Super Bowl in 2001 and not even making the playoffs in 2002. I was with Devin White, the Great White, okay? I call him the Great White, the Shark, at the opening, okay? Nike or Jordan event. And he was one of the coaches with me, which we won the championship, of course. And we talked about what happened in their mini camp. He said, BA, their head coach, said, you know what? Forget these films, forget all this, these iPads and all this. Let's go outside. I want to see how much you guys really know, all right? He said they ran the defenses and offense and everything to perfection. Guys were sharp. Guys were in shape. Guys were moving. Guys were on it, communicating. Everybody was on the same page, hardly making any mistakes. Guys were hungry to get back, and they know how important it is to be in tune and how to go forward and pick up from where they left off last year. That's rare. Yeah. So when you got a team like that and a team that comes out and the coach is cutting things down because they look that good, that's dangerous, D-Hall.
You know, across the board, all of you guys really have the Bucs coming back for a repeat. I see it, too. I'm in agreement. They are poised to come back and make it to the Super Bowl. Of course, this year in Los Angeles, remember 55 at 55 last year? I don't know what you're going to do this year if your boy Brady is here in L.A. Willie, that's what I'm looking forward to.
It's going down.
He's going to be on one. All right, guys, thanks. Every new NFL season is more than a chance for teams to make a fresh start. It's a chance for players to make a new rep. Coming up next on NFL Total Access, a couple guys who are desperate to rewrite their legacies and trade disappointing for dominance. Live games for you each day. It's live football right here on NFL Network. The Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater QB battle might be the most interesting camp competition. Head coach Vic Fangio will be watching every snap, and he wants a lot of them. James Palmer with an eye on the Broncos.
It isn't often in the NFL when you have a legit quarterback competition during training camp, and the Denver Broncos have just that between Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. Now, what they did during OTAs and mandatory minicamp, well, that equates to just about 2 to 3% of the overall evaluation in the minds of the decision makers in Denver. So everything is in front of them. They're going to divide up the reps 50-50 throughout this evaluation, and it could take, to my understanding, all 3 preseason games to decide who is going to be the starting quarterback. Vic Fangio, before they broke for the summer, told both quarterbacks to throw a lot over the break because we're going to have a lot of reps for both of you throughout all of training camp to decide who's going to be the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos.
Saquon Barkley's season ended with an ACL injury. His time since has been spent recovering, rehabbing, and reacting to questions on his expected return. Kim Jones with more on when we'll see Barkley.
Saquon Barkley talked to reporters Monday morning at his football camp for kids. He was asked, of course, about his availability for training camp. He said, "We'll see." He was asked if he'll be ready for the regular season opener. He again said, "We'll see." I think it's important to note here that Saquon Barkley is coming off a serious knee injury. Yes, he tore the ACL. He told us after the surgery about the meniscus and the MCL also being damaged. For Saquon Barkley and the Giants, it only makes sense to put him back on the field when he is ready, because when he's ready, he's one of the best in the business.
The numbers for Daniel Jones didn't move in the right direction in 2020. TD passes down by more than half and sacked at a higher rate. But what will year 3 bring? Well, according to NFL.com senior analyst Gil Brandt, Jones might be ready to make the leap. He's one of 10 guys he thinks will. You can check that list out at NFL.com. So let's take a leap with Willie and D-Hall. D-Hall, give us a player you feel is ready to make that jump, that leap in 2021.
Well, you heard James Farmer talk about the Denver Broncos and the quarterback decision. Is it going to be Drew Lock? Is it going to be Teddy Bridgewater? I tell you what, regardless who it is, you better look to Jerry Jeudy and get him the football. This is a kid who has been phenomenal ever since he decided to play the receiver position. Last year, not so much. He had the second most drops out of receivers in the National Football League. And so that's a fixable issue. He was targeted 113 times last year, only finished with 52 receptions. But this is a kid who can catch 100 balls very easily. And so I'm looking forward to him going out, being the pure catcher that he is. Maybe he was nervous. Who knows, Willie? We've all been rookies and thrown out there and not knowing what to do. So I'm looking for Jerry Jeudy to have a big, big second year this go round.
Hold on, D-Hall. We was rookies, but we knew what to do. I can't go for that one. We knew what to
do. Hey, I got bombed a couple times. Randy Moss bombed me a couple times.
That happens, but we knew what we was doing.
Not to be outdone. All right, Willie, what about you? What player are you looking for to make a leap this year?
Now, they don't have to be young, right? We ain't got to talk about rookies or second-year guys, because I got a guy in Kirk Cousins that's a veteran.
Yeah.
And that's been in the league for a long time, that I think everybody is sitting around waiting to see, okay, and how he's going to perform. Now, he was one of the guys that get the biggest contracts, fully guaranteed and all that. He goes to Minnesota. There's a lot of talent wrapped around him. Yeah, they was one game away from going to the Super Bowl, but since then, when you take away Dalvin Cook and you take away other pieces, this team don't look the same. It's time for him to carry the Minnesota Vikings and show everybody he's not only worth that first contract, but when they re-upped him for another big contract, because they believe in him and they believe he can be the guy. So I'm saying, Kirk Cousins, it's time to take this team. You got a good team on both sides of the ball and make that jump and get it at least into the NFC Championship. At least.
Ooh.
I like that.
You know like that, Kirk Cousins? You like that?
You like that? I know you like that. You got to like that.
D-Hall, from now on, you must end every segment just like that. All right, guys, thank you. Okay, so it didn't quite go the way you had hoped or planned in 2020, but that's the beauty of the NFL offseason. 0 losses on your record, 0 doubts. You can turn it around. Coming up next, 4 teams were on the verge of a run back to the postseason.
It's time for electric to turn into lightning. An electric truck.
To be one of the outsiders to get back in. Mike Garofalo leads our TA-OT discussion.
Here for Total Access Overtime with my friends. You can see them all right here to my left. And we're going to have ourselves a nice little friendly conversation. Might get heated at times because this is the way that we do it on TA-OT. And what we're going to debate here is which teams are we looking at this year that missed the playoffs this last year. You know, we've got more playoff teams than ever, so it's a wider pool. Who's jumping back into the pool after missing it last year? TD, going to start with you. Who are we looking at? What kind of underdog are we looking at to climb back into the postseason?
And we're talking about a team that was not the underdog for a very, very long time. But last year, things went off the rails. And I'm talking about the New England Patriots. I mean, last year, that roster they had last year, they were able to muster 7 wins out of that depleted roster. A quarterback who missed the entire offseason, and they signed him right before they had the season. Then he caught COVID. So, you know, they have another year to work with him. Their roster's back. Hightower opted out to COVID-19. He's back. The additions of Jonnu Smith, Travers, Hunter Henry, they've added a lot of pieces for this team. So I believe the Patriots, with that coach that we all know, the greatest coach of all time, they will make the postseason this year.
I actually really agree with you, TD. I also really appreciate the way you said very there. Very, very. I don't know what accent that was, but it was great. But ultimately, when I look at this team, it comes down to quarterback play. They've got some of the things you need, like a favorable schedule, the potential to have some of these games that are not in their division be achievable. It's going to come down to what happens at that quarterback position, because to me, they're kind of cuspy right now, and that will just put them over the edge.
But, Cynthia, don't you think they wouldn't... They wouldn't have re-signed Cam if they didn't believe that they can get the most out of a guy who was already a league MVP. They wouldn't have re-signed him if they felt that he had maxed out his potential. I believe there's a lot more in Cam than we saw last year.
I completely agree with you.
Go ahead, Cynthia.
Oh, no, you're good. I completely agree with you. I think Cam is probably going to start off really strong, but I will say that division's pretty tough. That's the only thing that could be the difference maker.
Yes, all right. A lot tougher than it used to be, that's for sure, because the Patriots have now jumped back into the mix with everybody else, and the Bills are now the team that they are chasing. All right, James Palmer, TD kind of took a layup there, right? You had the team that made the playoffs for like 2 decades straight and says, they're going to jump back in there. Let's go with you on this one. Who are we looking at to get back into the postseason?
Cynthia wants to talk about tough divisions. This team doesn't play in a very tough one in the NFC West. How about the San Francisco 49ers? I'm joking. It's probably the toughest division in football. They went 6-10 a year ago, but they had the worst injury luck of any team that played in the NFL a season ago, and they had the 3rd hardest schedule a season ago. And you would have to think that that type of luck with the injury bug is not going to happen again. They had a terrible turnover differential. Only the Broncos had a worse one, and I don't believe the ball's going to bounce poorly for them in that manner once again. And you look at who's coming back on that defensive line in terms of Nick Bosa getting healthy, who Kyle Shanahan recently said, guys, like, he doesn't want to compare players, but when you lose somebody like Nick Bosa, that's like losing Aaron Donald. That's like losing Von Miller. That's like losing J.J. Watt back in the day in Houston. When you're such a difference maker on that defensive line, the attention you really desire and the dishension that comes to you, that allows other players to make plays. Indeed, Ford barely played. He played a game last year. And then you go the offensive side of the ball. Jimmy Garoppolo hurt throughout the year, and he is more motivated now than he has ever been in his NFL career, because he is doing what? He is auditioning for 31 other teams to prove to them he can stay healthy. He has Trey Lance nipping at his heels. This is a team that went 13-3 when he played the duration of a season, and they were one overthrow away from winning the Super Bowl. And I think the other part of this is I'm not the only person who thinks like this. There were 8 teams that got an NFL high 5 primetime games. Going 6-10 a year ago, the 49ers also got 5 primetime games. So that shows me the schedule makers think that they are going to make some moves. And also, they start the season against the Lions. 2 other years they did that, they won the Super Bowl.
Wow, James Palmer went deep into the research for that last little nugget right there. By the way, Trey Lance. Yeah, you would think that if they make the playoffs, that means they played well all season long. Jimmy Garoppolo played well and held on to his position. I think that's possible, but don't be surprised, even if they're a solid team, that Trey Lance sneaks his way in there. He can impress his way into that starting role. We shall see. All right, Cynthia, give me a bold one. I'm still looking for the bold prediction, a team that maybe hasn't been there for a while and is going to jump in. Who's it going to be?
I was just going to say, the guys that were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago and Bill Belichick, bold guys, real bold. Well, I'm going to go with the same division, NFC West. You talk about that guy, J.J. Watt. Well, he was a big addition to the team, I think, is going to make it to the postseason this year. That's the Arizona Cardinals. I actually think 3 teams from the West could very easily and achievably make it to the postseason. But when I look at the Cardinals, they're a very boom or bust team. They took a lot of risks. They paid a lot of players. They brought in a lot of various situations, from kind of getting lucky Kentucky from the middle of their O-line being Rodney Hudson we didn't think he was going to be even on the market. They snatched him right up. They paid their defenders. They have Chandler Jones. They've got one of the best kind of secondary situations with Budda Baker. I love all of it. So when I look to see what Cliff Kingsbury is going to dial up, this is not a team where people are thinking, okay, well, you know, this is a prolific, we don't really know what's going on with this situation, but I think this is where we see him dial it up with Kyler Murray. They brought him in specifically for kind of being that sort of different quarterback. This is a season that pays off.
This feels like a very, very pivotal season for the Arizona Cardinals, Cliff Kingsbury, Kyler Murray, and that whole crew. So they really do need to make the postseason, I believe, because there might be a little bit of impatience with ownership there. All right, for me, look, I am going to take the New York Giants to make the postseason, and I was just thinking about this the other day. As I was driving by MetLife Stadium. You know, there have been 2 postseason games in the history of MetLife Stadium, and one of them was the Super Bowl where the Jets or Giants didn't even play in that game. It is about time that stadium hosted another postseason game. It's been around for 22 seasons if you combine the 11 and the 11 for the Giants and the Jets, and I think the Giants get it done this year, extending the streak to, like, I don't know, 100 years where the NFC East winner has not repeated. I like this Giants team last year under Joe Judge, what they were able to do as far as their ability to start competing. Now they're getting Saquon Barkley back. I think Judge taught this team not how to just compete, but also to win some games. I am very bullish on the Giants this year. I believe they win the division, host a playoff game back at MetLife Stadium, and I'm going to make a really bold prediction here. They're going to win the NFC East with a winning record, because we know that, you know, the way that division's been of late. Now, look, I was joking on these guys for their picks. I know now that they're going to come after me. Who wants to start and tell me that I'm crazy for thinking that the Giants are headed back to the postseason?
Yes, I'll start with that. You are crazy. Because, I mean, listen, I get it. I get it, Mike G. Like you just said it, man. They only had 2 postseason games within the last couple of years since MetLife Stadium has been there, and they only played in 1. But here's the reason why I'm going to say not the Giants. Because there's another team in that division called the Cowboys. And we saw what happened to the Cowboys last year. They won 6 games last year, but that was all because they didn't have their star quarterback, Dak Prescott. But when he was playing, he was arguably playing on an MVP level with that offense. Now, their offense was good. The defense had problems. I believe now that Dan Quinn is a new defensive coordinator coming over from the Falcons. It's going to be a better DC in Dallas because he now gets to focus on defense, not have to manage the team and then try to do defensive play calls. He can now focus on his defense. That, to me, makes the Cowboys the best team in that division. And it's only one team going to the to the playoffs. It ain't going to be 2 or 3, so the Cowboys is that team.
So when I look at the Cowboys, I love Dan Quinn, and I think it's going to be great in the long term. But remember, 8 of 11 of their draft picks were all defensive players, meaning they're rookies, meaning there's a lot of situations happening from last season where those players didn't even play a full complement of games. How are they going to handle the rookie wall when they now have 17 games and then not even the normal kind of training trajectory from the past season? So for me, I look at that defense. It's a little dicey. Forward-looking, it's probably really good. I do like Dak. This isn't anything about their offense. But when I look at that defense, that's dicey. And you know whose defense isn't dicey? Yeah, the Washington football team. I think they're going to take the division, and I think they're going to be the one team that makes it into the postseason.
No, well, listen, I'm going to say this. The Dallas Cowboys have the best player at the most important position in the entire division, and it's not even close when you look at the other quarterbacks. Dak Prescott threw more touchdown passes in 5 games last year than TD's favorite player in the NFL, Cam Newton, did the entire season. And you look at CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Amari Cooper, Ezekiel Elliott. This defense under Dan Quinn, the 3rd DC in 18 months for this team, just needs to play, Mike, bad. They can't play terrible. They need to be mediocre to bad, and with Dak Prescott, they should still be able to win the division.
Now, Cynthia used the word dicey with talking about the Cowboys defense. What about the Washington football team's offense? Like, do you think that's going to be some juggernaut to this year? Like, what do you think that's going to be like?
I believe in magic.
Dicey.
What are you talking about? Terry McLaurin, he's also magic. I know James Palmer likes him, but let's talk about this. Antonio Gibson, come on. This is a great offense. It's not prolific, but you think about that defense is up here, not dicey defense. The offense just needs to be, what is it, good, not terrible? Isn't that what James just said? That's the scale?
Yeah.
Got it.
Bad, not terrible. Yeah.
Bad, not terrible.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. We're, by the way, I said it was 100 years. We're coming up on like 2 decades of the NFC East not having a repeat winner. Cynthia Freeland says that streak breaks. I think it's the Eagles the last time that we saw it happen. She says it's going to be the Washington football team. Check back in January to find out who's right. Hint, hint, it's going to be me. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you for joining us.
All right, that rise in temperature you're feeling, it is not the heat of the summer. It's Olympic fever, and we're